So the very first thing they were talking about is how Donald Trump can help stabilize the situation in Israel. Bibi is telling them who the enemy is, who's the problem, where it's coming from, and then Donald Trump will turn to his people and say, make that problem go away. And there was a whole conspiracy against Israel being run by the White House to prop up Benjamin Netanyahu. That was the first thing. The second thing is Iran and planning phase 2 of this conflict. What the United States is willing to support, what they're not willing to support, what the red lines will be, but shaping the inevitability of round 2. People need to remember the emphasis that Benjamin Netanyahu placed on normalization of relations and posturing Israel as a key hub, economic hub for the Middle East. I think in September of 2023, about a month prior to the October 7th attack, Joe Biden was in India with, I think, the G20 meeting, and he made an announcement about the India-Middle East Economic Corridor. And right after he made that announcement, Netanyahu came out and said, this is one of the most important days in modern Israeli history. Did you hear what I said? One of the most important days and events in modern Israel, because this was the liberation. This was freedom. I think Metallica got mad that you played Enter the Sandman. They didn't like that, so you had to change the video. But it was cool for a while because it took you back to the day when you were young, a hard-charging Army officer, when you played that heavy metal to lift weights, because you lift a lot of weights, baby. I've seen you out there, baby, doing the push-ups, the rucksack. You are a stud. So you'll play Metallica and you sit there and you read from a script. And you're not too good at reading, though, are you? Because you spend a lot of time lifting weights, not too much time working the brain. But then the drone flies in, flown by some guy over there, and it delivers a piece of paper. And you take it. This is drone dominance. Holy cow, did you see it? A drone flew to him and gave him a piece of paper. Then he signed it. What did he sign? Nothing. The whole purpose of that was to generate the stock prices of a couple defense industries involved in the blue list. The blue list is a list of commercial drone technologies that the Pentagon back in 2020 started to say, we can buy these things and adapt them for this. And they do it. But we don't do drones the way everybody else does drones. I like that also. And we'll look at some things like we'll do some 3D printing, push it forward to the troops. Yeah, there'll be a 3D printer in the battalion office, and there'll be a sergeant major there. So if you have somebody coming out saying, my sources in the CIA say this, stop, finish. Because the only reason they're talking to you is because they're trying to achieve a propaganda aspect here, an information operation against the American public. The CIA will never tell the truth. Doesn't mean the truth can't be found out, but the CIA is incapable of telling the truth. They're not designed to tell the truth, especially about covert operations. They're covert for a reason, deniability. So when the CIA speaks, it's because there's a need to speak, to shape the perception, to take you away from the direction they want. Go the exact opposite direction of what Weiner said. That's the reality. He's shaping something, trying to create something, because they don't want you looking here. They want you over here. And that's all I have to say about Tim Weiner. He's a disgusting journalist. He's not a journalist. He's a CIA hack, and his job is to work with the CIA to deflect public attention away from where it needs to be focused. They collaborated together in Syria to achieve important results, and they also collaborated together the whole Shahed drone thing, where the Russians came in, the Iranians turned around and did this. There is a relationship here that is mature. I have very good friends that I've known for a lifetime, guys that I met when I first went to Russia, Americans. We disagree on Ukraine fundamentally, vehemently. We're still the best of friends. And if it came time for me to ask for them to help me, or for me to help them, which we both have done, everything's dropped and the help's done. And we never have to worry about, are they going to stab me in the back? Are they going to do this? Are they going to do that? No, because that's what friendship's about. But people don't understand that Russia and Iran can have differences of opinion diplomatically on certain issues and still maintain a close relationship based upon trust. And you've seen it. You're 100% right to point it out. One of the major bylines in the propaganda conflict being waged post-Israel-Iran conflict is the betrayal of Iran by Russia. And where you're not hearing it from Iranian officials, and you're not hearing Russians going, they don't trust us anymore. You're reading it in the West, unsourced, anonymous, high-level government officials saying stuff like this. It's non-existent. They can never again be allowed to have access to industry because this is going to happen. Everything that's happening right now was predicted back then because the Germans are a sick society. There's something wrong with the Germans fundamentally. Tell me I'm wrong. Listen to their statements. The fact that you have a German chancellor and a German defense minister making these statements and the millions of Germans aren't in the streets saying, never again, not in our name, that will not happen. Instead, they sit there like the compliant good Germans there. Oh, we don't know what to do, but our arms keep twitching because we want to do something, but we don't know what we want to do. You know what you want to do because you're all Nazis at heart. Scratch a German, get a Nazi. This is the fact. Just it's playing out in front of us. Playing out in front of us. But Pistorius and Merz, they're trying to create something, this Fourth Reich, and it should scare the hell out of everybody. It should scare the hell out of the Americans. It's not just the Russians that paid a price. We went to war against them too. Yes, we are to blame for the rise of the Fourth Reich. We're the ones that worked with the Germans. Study the history at the end of World War II and what happened to the Wehrmacht. And study what happened to the generals. Everybody talks about the Nuremberg trials. Nuremberg trials. I said this. And I remember talking to the Israeli intelligence officer responsible for doing the national assessments. And I remember when I first started, Iraq was the number one. They were going to kill Saddam Hussein. If they could implement this, Israel stops being this parasite that can only exist by sucking the lifeblood out of America and Europe. And Israel is on the path of becoming actually a viable entity, the central entity, the glue that holds the Middle East together. That was the plan. Then it collapsed, and now we have this disaster taking place. And so I believe they spent a lot of time talking about how they can put Humpty Dumpty back together again, because this plan of the India Middle East Economic Corridor, the Abrams Accord, that's Humpty Dumpty. He sat on a wall, but he had a great fall, and all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. And Trump is talking about how we can do that. We get the super glue, put it in, but things have to happen. So I think those are the three things. Saving Bibi's political butt, resolving Iran, Hezbollah, and how to get Humpty Dumpty put back together again. And I remember talking to the Israelis. They said this fundamentally will change everything because it's going to change the political dynamic of Israel. It's going to stack the demographics in favor of Netanyahu's Likud party with people who don't understand the Palestinians, who hate the Palestinians. They'll be seeking to impose a very strict Zionist approach on this. The Iranians and the Russians have their way of doing diplomacy, their way of sharing information, but these amateur propagandists actually think that putting lies out there are going to get, it's like they wanted to get the Russians. You're going to strike Moscow? You're going to, maybe we should, Putin, you have to think about leaving the city. They're going to strike Moscow. We have to change everything we're doing. We have to reallocate air defense resources from where we have them on the front line. No, they're going to strike Moscow. We have to build a layered defense. We have to spend all our time. And the Russians are going, nah, don't worry about it. We're not worried about it. Because if they do, we know what we're going to do. And it's, this is stupidity. These propagandists actually think that the Russians and the Iranians read this crap and pay attention to it. This is fodder for the mindless American masses. They're trying to use Syria as a leverage against Russia and Iran. And yes, there were differences of policy in Syria. The Russians made no bones about it. The Russians did not want Iran establishing themselves near the Golan Heights. And they said, that's not our purpose here. Our purpose is to put up Assad, and if Iran is here to help Assad, but we're not here to actually shoehorn Iran into a favorable position against Israel. And so they had a difference of opinion, but they also worked together very closely. Tim Weiner's, he's not to be trusted on any of this. I've known Tim Weiner for a long time. He is the equivalent of a CIA historian, even though he doesn't work for the CIA. His job is to spin everything to the favor of the CIA. When I resigned as a weapons inspector in Iraq, having spent 7 years working intimately with the CIA at every level on the issue of Iraq and WMD, he was one of the people tasked with countering what I was saying. And I just despise the man because I know what I know and how I know it. And I know that when he starts talking about things that I was intimately involved in and countering it, I know who his sources are. He's not a legitimate journalist. He's not a legitimate historian. He might as well be on the payroll of the CIA. He was that way with Iraq and WMD, and he's that way on this story right now. He's giving you the CIA-approved narrative, which is designed to do two things: spin things in a way that puts the CIA in a good light, and then shape public perceptions. Let me make the following observation about the CIA. Anytime you have somebody talking about the CIA officially, and acting as if they have sources in the CIA. The CIA does not function. It's not designed to function in the sunlight. It's not how the CIA operates. The CIA is all about lies, deceit, deception. Hell, you had Mike Pompeo brag about it, if you remember, when he was the director of the CIA. They withdrew the rare earth minerals and the magnetic materials, and the U.S. automobile industry collapsed, and Trump had to go crawling back, and they just fixed it. It looks like they were getting back on track to some sort of trade agreement. Then what? He's going to throw it all away by putting 100% sanctions on China now? China will just pull the plug again. This time they won't be inclined to give it back, and the American economy will tank. All those wonderful weapons that Trump wants to build, they all require that rare earth mineral stuff, those magnetics. And yeah, so it's stupid. Brazil, I think Lula basically said, if you want to sanction us, then we just don't want to do trade with you. Didn't he say a statement like that? We just won't trade with you. Okay, I think they're making this clear. And India, you really think India is going to yield its sovereignty right now? India that's trying to posture itself as a nation that matters. And they're going to go, oh no, the United States is threatening to sanction us. We're going to give up everything, all our standing that we have, and yield to the United States. No, it's never going to happen. That's why there's 50 days, because it will never happen. Trump will extend it. He's looking for diplomacy right now. And what he's going to say is, oh, my threats brought about this great change. But there will be no change, Donnie baby. But at some point in time, their words are going to result in some sort of limited action that's going to trigger Russia. And Russia, I can guarantee you, isn't talking. Russia doesn't want war. But my God, if the Germans want to bring it on, there ain't going to be nothing to make the Russians happier than putting the stake through the heart of this stupidity, this German defense minister, this German chancellor who talks about Germany's going to do it again, but do it right this time. What does that mean, do it right this time? That means you don't regret doing what you did. The only thing you regret is that you got beat. That it would all been okay had Germany won the war. You don't regret anything. You don't regret the Holocaust. You don't regret slaughtering Jews. You don't regret the whole Lebensraum policy you had against the Russians. You know, the Germans, had they been left to their own volition, would have captured all of Russia up to the Ural Mountains, depopulated, that means killed them, millions, tens of millions, and then enslaved the rest. That was doing it right, according to the Germans. The Germans are a sick society. I hate to say it, but the fact of the matter is, Franklin Roosevelt had it right during the Quebec Conference of 1943. Churchill said that when this war is over, Germany has to be converted into an agrarian society. Have you filed out the appropriate forms to 3D print? Okay, sign it here, sign it there. 3D printer's down. It's broken right now. We don't have time to fit. Anybody who's been in the U.S. military knows what's going to happen. That ain't going to happen. Meanwhile, the Russians and the Ukrainians got 3D printers right there at the front lines, printing stuff out, cranking it out. There ain't no sergeant major there checking things off. They're just doing it. They're doing it. There's a kid sitting there pulling out without anybody over his shoulders, doing the modifications necessary. And he put in his own little modification because he called the guy at the front and said, hey, they're doing this. So he did it. He didn't get permission from anybody to do that. He just did it, delivered the drone, bam, on a tank, destroyed it. Next one came in, got jammed. He came in, fixed it up on his own, didn't get anybody's permission, and did it. That's how you get drone dominance. That's what the Russians are doing. That's what the Ukrainians are doing. They're pretty good at it too. That ain't what Pete Hegseth's talking about. He's talking about American military bureaucracy in a peacetime environment, and you will never get drone dominance. It's a joke. I don't think the benefit of the United States factors into anything Donald Trump does. I think he is, how do I get the Nobel Peace Prize? And I hate to say this, but it really comes down to that. This is all about him posturing himself to be seen as the great peacemaker. It's not about real deals. Look at the fine print of the U.S.-Ukrainian rare earth mineral deal. It's not a deal. It's fake. That's supposed to benefit the United States? No, it doesn't. It humiliates America. Nothing he does benefits the United States. Everything he does humiliates us and makes matters worse. It's all about posturing Donald J. Trump as the greatest thing on the world. He's a snake oil salesman. He's a grifter. He's a con artist. He's not the president of the United States. He is in name, but the function, he doesn't do anything to benefit the United States. Nothing. Everything is done to make his image look good. Look at his whole tariff policy. We're not, you have to laugh at Besson. We're going to get $100 billion. You haven't collected that money, Scott Besson, you haven't collected that money. This is just smoke and mirrors. Everything he does is smoke and mirrors. There's no substance to it. There's no reality to it. And that's all a grift. Look at Pete Hegseth coming out with his drone policy. We're going to have drone dominance. No, you're not. But it's cute. You got to play Metallica. The Russians are very legally minded. For them to have any agreement with Ukraine requires legitimacy on the part of the people participating in the process. There is no doubt in anybody's mind that Vladimir Putin is the president of Russia. There is no doubt that anybody he appoints under him to do a job, has the authority of the Russian government behind them. Zelensky is not the legitimate president of Ukraine. Hasn't been for some time now, constitutionally. Can't do it. And I know the West sits there and rewrites, it's a war. It doesn't say that in the Constitution. The fact is, right now, the leader of Ukraine constitutionally is the Speaker of the Parliament. That's who the Russians are saying, we'll do business with that person. But what we prefer is that you have new elections and you guys pick somebody who then can sit down and sign the document of surrender. But it ain't going to be Zelensky because he's not in a position to surrender anything. And that's the reality. And this is the reality of the whole government that he's built around them. It's the most corrupt edifice in the world. It doesn't represent Ukraine. It doesn't represent the Ukrainian people, Ukrainian nation. It only represents their own individual corrupt interests. So we can't compare Zelensky with Netanyahu at all, except that they're both scumbags. He had no problem with killing them. He just didn't want to do it up front. Every single German officer was bad, and yet this is what became the Bundeswehr. The Nazi army was restructured to become the Bundeswehr as part of NATO, and they've been hiding in the shadows ever since. And now they're coming out. This is the reality of Germany today. It is the Fourth Reich. It's the scariest thing that's happened in Europe in a long time. And if it doesn't get nipped in the bud, we're going to be looking at another European war where Germany is at the heart of it. Germany is not the friend of the United States. Germany is only the friend of Germany. That's something people need to pay close attention to going forward. Germany is the threat.